On the morning of June 20th, 2001, Andrea Yates methodically drowned all 5 of her children in the bathtub of their suburban Houston home, one after another while they were still in their pajamas. She did not scream. She did not hesitate. And when it was over, she called the police and calmly told them what she had done. Before we go any further, I want you to comment below with one question. What psychological warning sign do you think is most often ignored in cases like this? Drop your answer now. This is not a story about a sudden snap. This is not about a mother who lost control in a moment of rage. This is about a woman whose mind was systematically dismantled over years by untreated psychosis, religious extremism, and a family structure that mistook obedience for love. Andrea Yates did not wake up one day and decide to kill her children. She was led there, step by step, by forces she could not resist and people who refused to see what was happening right in front of them. To understand what Andrea did, you have to understand who she was before the world knew her name. Andrea Kennedy was born in 1964 in Houston, Texas, the youngest of 5 children in a working-class Catholic family. She was quiet, studious, and deeply compliant. Friends described her as someone who never caused trouble, never questioned authority, never pushed back. She was as straight a student, a competitive swimmer, and a registered nurse by the time she was in her 20s. On paper, Andrea was the model of stability and success. But beneath that surface was something else. Andrea had always been prone to anxiety and perfectionism. She internalized criticism. She struggled with self-worth. She needed structure, approval, and clear rules to feel safe. These traits are not inherently dangerous. But in the wrong environment, they become vulnerabilities. And Andrea was about to enter an environment that would exploit every single one of them. In 1989, Andrea met Rusty Yates at an apartment complex in Houston. Rusty was an engineer at NASA, intelligent and ambitious, but also rigid and controlling. He had strong opinions about how life should be lived, and he was looking for a woman who would follow his lead without question. Andrea fit that role perfectly. They married in 1993, and from the beginning, their relationship was defined by Rusty's vision and Andrea's submission. Rusty wanted a large family. Not just 2 or 3 children, but many. He believed in homeschooling, in self-sufficiency, in living simply. He was influenced by a man named Michael Woronitsky, a traveling street preacher who had befriended Rusty years earlier. Woronitsky's teachings were not mainstream Christianity. They were apocalyptic, authoritarian, and deeply misogynistic. He preached that women were inherently sinful, that mothers bore the spiritual burden of their children's salvation, and that mental illness was a sign of moral weakness or demonic influence. Medication was viewed as interference with God's will. Suffering was a test of faith. Rusty absorbed these ideas completely. And Andrea, desperate to be a good wife and a good Christian, absorbed them too. Would you have questioned these beliefs if you were in Andrea's position, or would you have trusted the person you loved? Think about that. Andrea's first child, Noah, was born in 1994. She was a devoted mother, attentive and anxious. But after Noah's birth, something shifted. Andrea began experiencing symptoms of postpartum depression. Exhaustion, sadness, difficulty bonding with the baby. She did not tell anyone. In the belief system she had adopted, struggling as a mother was not a medical issue. It was a spiritual failure. She had 4 more children in rapid succession: John in 1995, Paul in 1997, Luke in 1999, and Mary in 2000. Each pregnancy took a heavier toll. Andrea was homeschooling, cooking, cleaning, and caring for 5 young children in a cramped, converted bus that Rusty had purchased as part of his vision for simple living. There was no privacy, no help, no relief. Andrea was isolated, exhausted, and beginning to unravel. After the birth of her 4th child, Luke, Andrea's mental state collapsed. She stopped eating. She stopped speaking. She sat motionless for hours, staring at nothing. Rusty found her in the bathroom one day, holding a knife to her own throat. He took her to the hospital. She was diagnosed with severe postpartum depression and prescribed antidepressants. She improved slightly and was released. 2 weeks later, she overdosed on pills in a suicide attempt. She was hospitalized again, this time under psychiatric care. The doctors were clear: Andrea was suffering from postpartum psychosis, a rare and dangerous condition that causes delusions, hallucinations, and a complete break from reality. They told Rusty explicitly that another pregnancy would almost certainly trigger another psychotic episode. They recommended that Andrea not have any more children. Rusty and Andrea ignored that advice. In November 2000, Andrea became pregnant with her fifth child, Mary. The pregnancy was difficult. Andrea's mental state deteriorated rapidly. She became paranoid, withdrawn, and obsessed with religious texts. She believed she was a bad mother. She believed she was damaging her children. She believed that Satan was inside her. After Mary's birth in November 2000, Andrea's psychosis intensified. She began having vivid hallucinations. She heard voices. She saw visions of knives and violence. She became convinced that her children were doomed to hell because of her failures as a mother. In her fractured mind, the only way to save them was to kill them before they reached the age of accountability, before they could be corrupted by sin. Do you think Andrea's doctors did enough to prevent what happened next? Or was the system designed to fail her? Andrea was hospitalized twice more in the months leading up to June 2001. Each time she was placed on antipsychotic medication. Each time she stabilized. And each time she was released back into the same environment, isolated, overwhelmed, and surrounded by a belief system that told her medication was weakness and suffering was holy. In March 2001, Andrea's father died. The loss devastated her. Her psychosis deepened. She stopped bathing. She stopped caring for herself. She scratched at her own scalp until it bled. Rusty noticed, but he did not intervene in any meaningful way. He continued to go to work every day, leaving Andrea alone with 5 children under the age of 7. Andrea's psychiatrist, Dr. Mohammed Saeed, reduced her medication. He believed she was improving. He was wrong. Andrea was not improving, she was planning. On the morning of June 20, 2001, Rusty left for work at 9 a.m. His mother was supposed to arrive at 10 a.m. to help Andrea with the children. Andrea had 1 hour alone. She used it. She filled the bathtub with water. She called her oldest son, Noah, into the bathroom. He was 7 years old. She held him under the water until he stopped moving. Then she laid his body on the bed. She called her next son, John, who was 5. She drowned him. She laid him next to Noah. She called Paul, who was 3. She drowned him. She laid him next to his brothers. Luke, who was 2, saw what was happening and tried to run. Andrea chased him through the house, caught him, and drowned him in the bathtub. She laid him with his brothers. Mary, who was 6 months old, was still in her crib. Andrea drowned her last. She left Mary's body floating in the bathtub. Then Andrea called 911. Her voice was flat, emotionless. She told the operator, "I just killed my kids." When the operator asked why, Andrea said, "They weren't developing correctly." She called Rusty at work. She told him to come home. She told him it was time. He asked what she meant. She said, "It's the children." When the police arrived, Andrea was sitting at the kitchen table, soaking wet, staring at nothing. She did not resist arrest. She did not cry. She told the officers exactly what she had done, in precise detail, without emotion. She said she had been thinking about it for months. She said she knew it was the only way to save them. What would you have thought if you were the first officer to walk into that house? Could you have understood what you were seeing? The public reaction was immediate and visceral. Andrea Yates became a monster in the media. Headlines screamed about evil, about maternal betrayal, about a woman who had committed the unthinkable. Prosecutors argued that Andrea was sane, that she knew what she was doing, and that she deserved the death penalty. They pointed to the fact that she called 911 as evidence of her awareness. They argued that a truly insane person would not have understood that what she did was wrong. But that argument misunderstands the nature of psychosis. Andrea did know that drowning her children was illegal. She knew the police would come. She knew she would be arrested. But in her delusional mind, none of that mattered. She believed she was saving her children's souls from eternal damnation. She believed that her own punishment was irrelevant compared to their salvation. The law said it was murder. Her psychosis told her it was mercy. In her first trial in 2002, Andrea was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison. The jury rejected the insanity defense. But the conviction was overturned in 2005, after it was revealed that a prosecution witness, forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz, had given false testimony. He claimed that an episode of the TV show Law and Order had aired shortly before the murders, featuring a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted by reason of insanity. He suggested Andrea had seen the episode and copied it. No such episode existed. In her second trial in 2006, the jury heard more complete psychiatric testimony. They heard about Andrea's repeated hospitalizations, her suicide attempts, her delusions, her hallucinations. They heard about the warnings her doctors had given. They heard about the religious environment that had reinforced her psychosis. This time, the jury found Andrea not guilty by reason of insanity. She was committed to a psychiatric hospital where she remains today. Andrea Yates is now in her 60s. She is heavily medicated, stable, and fully aware of what she did. She does not ask to be released. She does not claim she was right. She knows she killed her children. She knows they are gone because of her. That awareness is its own prison, far more permanent than any cell. But the question that haunts this case is not what Andrea did. It is how so many people saw the warning signs and did nothing. Andrea's psychosis was not hidden, it was documented. She was hospitalized multiple times. She attempted suicide twice. Her doctors warned that another pregnancy would be catastrophic. And yet, she was left alone with 5 small children, in an isolated environment, surrounded by a belief system that told her suffering was holy and medication was sin. Rusty Yates has never accepted responsibility for his role in what happened. In interviews after the murders, he defended his decision to have more children despite medical warnings. He said he trusted God. He said Andrea wanted more children too. He remarried in 2006 and had another child. He has said he forgives Andrea, but he has never acknowledged that his choices contributed to her collapse. Michael Wierenitsky, the street preacher whose teachings shaped the Yates family's worldview, has also never taken responsibility. He has denied that his beliefs played any role in Andrea's psychosis. He has said that Andrea's actions were her own, that she was weak, that she failed to resist temptation. He continues to preach. Do you think the people around Andrea bear any moral responsibility for what happened, even if they didn't commit the crime themselves? The Andrea Yates case exposes something deeply uncomfortable about how we understand mental illness, motherhood, and responsibility. We want to believe that people who commit terrible acts are simply evil, that they chose to do wrong, that they could have stopped themselves if they had wanted to. But Andrea's case does not fit that narrative. She was not evil, she was sick. And the people around her, the systems that were supposed to protect her, failed at every level. Postpartum psychosis is rare, affecting only 1 or 2 out of every 1,000 new mothers. But it is also one of the most dangerous psychiatric conditions that exists. Women experiencing postpartum psychosis are at extreme risk of suicide and infanticide. The condition requires immediate, aggressive treatment. It is not something that resolves on its own. It is not something that can be prayed away. Andrea's doctors knew this. They warned Rusty. They warned Andrea. But in a belief system that views mental illness as spiritual failure, those warnings were meaningless. Andrea was taught that her suffering was a test, that medication was a crutch, that true faith meant enduring without complaint. She internalized that teaching completely. And it killed her children. The legal system struggled to make sense of Andrea's case because it challenged fundamental assumptions about criminal responsibility. The law requires that a person understand the nature and consequences of their actions. Andrea understood that drowning her children would kill them. She understood that it was illegal, but she did not understand reality. She believed she was acting in their best interest. She believed she was saving them. That belief was not a choice. It was a symptom. This is the core of the insanity defense. Not that the person did not know what they were doing, but that their perception of reality was so distorted that they could not form rational intent. Andrea's intent was not to harm her children. Her intent was to protect them from what she believed was a worse fate. The fact that her belief was delusional does not make her intent any less real to her. Would you have voted to convict Andrea if you had been on that jury, or would you have believed she was insane? The aftermath of the Andrea Yates case led to some changes in how postpartum mental illness is understood and treated. There is more awareness now of postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. There are more resources for new mothers. There is less stigma around seeking help. But the fundamental problem remains. Mental illness is still often viewed as a personal failing, especially for women, especially for mothers. Mothers are expected to be selfless, tireless, endlessly patient. They are expected to sacrifice without complaint. They are expected to love their children unconditionally, no matter how exhausted, isolated, or overwhelmed they feel. And when a mother admits that she is struggling, that she is not coping, that she needs help, she is often met with judgment rather than support. Andrea Yates internalized that judgment completely. She believed that her inability to be the perfect mother meant she was damned. She believed that her children were damned because of her. And in her psychotic state, the only solution she could see was death. The tragedy of Andrea Yates is not just that 5 children died. The tragedy is that their deaths were preventable. If Andrea had been given proper psychiatric care and not been pressured to have more children, if she had been removed from an environment that reinforced her delusions, if the people around her had taken her illness seriously instead of treating it as a spiritual problem, those children would still be alive. But none of those things happened. And so, on a June morning in 2001, Andrea Yates drowned her 5 children in a bathtub, believing she was saving their souls. She lives with that knowledge every day. She is medicated, stable, and fully aware. She knows what she did. She knows her children are gone. She knows she can never undo it. That awareness is the punishment, not prison, not death. Awareness. The question we are left with is not whether Andrea Yates is a monster. The question is how many other women are suffering in silence right now, surrounded by people who refuse to see the warning signs, trapped in belief systems that tell them their pain is weakness, their illness is sin, their need for help is failure. How many more tragedies will it take before we start listening?